Welcome everyone to Story Adventures. We would love to extend a warm welcome to our author today, Laureanna Raymond-Duvernell, and she will be sharing with us her first book, a brand new book called Under in the Mud. Before we begin, I'd like to do a shout out to our awesome team at FIELD Edventures. We have a lot of these folks on the screen, so if you are on, wave. If not, I'll just give you a quick introduction. The masterminds, Victoria, Sandy, and Cheryl, Emma, our tech person, myself, and Ruth Ann. Oh, I'm Ashley. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ashley, and I am a field coach, and I love to do these story adventures with all of you because my family loves to read books and explore outdoors. So what to expect today? We're going to allow some time to listen to our story read by our author. Then you will get a chance to ask any questions that you have about any of the animals that you see in the book or that you've seen in your backyard, or just about the book writing process. And then lastly, we'll give you some ideas so that you can take it outside and maybe go on an adventure today. Your cameras are welcome to be on, but if you are having some internet issues, you might want to try to turn off your camera. And it'd be great if you keep your microphones muted until the end. And if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and share them with the group. So with that, I would like to welcome our author, our guest author, Laureanna Raymond-Duvernell. Just a little bit about Laureanna. Laureanna loves learning. She taught third grade for many years and now teaches kids of all ages about exploring and learning in our outdoor environment. She got the idea for her book when she was on a field trip with her daughter to the Retzer Nature Center. This helped her realize that book ideas are all around us. We sometimes just need to explore our world, notice what is around us, and find answers to the questions in our heads. In her free time, Laureanna loves to hike, mountain bike, read, laugh, and spend time with her family and friends. She does not love doing dishes, I can relate, but she loves eating good food. I can relate too. She lives near Milwaukee with her husband, Peter, and her two daughters, Sierra and Marina. They will survive this winter by downhill skiing, playing games together, and watching The Mandalorian. I would love for you guys to give her a round of applause quietly. And I'm going to turn the screen over to her so she can introduce herself and share her new book.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Well, thank you everybody for joining me today and logging on with FIELD Edventures. It is such a neat program that we have here in Wisconsin to be able to share nature and books with kids. And I'm excited that so many people from all over the country joined us as well. I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on the book and me before I read it to you. Like Ashley said, I did teach for a long time in the Sussex area, and actually one of my former students is on, so I'm going to give a quick shout out to Rachel Weiss if you see her on there. She was a kid who I had my third year of teaching, and she's a teacher herself now, so it's been neat to see kids that I had grow up as well. Now what I do for my work is I teach as an environmental educator in Waukesha. I'm actually in our nature center right now, so you can see some of our animals behind us, or behind me, and I'll also be able to share some of them with you a little bit later today. I just want to tell you a little bit about how this book came to be. When my younger daughter Marina was in kindergarten, she had a teacher named Mr. Dargitz, and Mr. Dargitz's nature kindergarten class is here with us today too, so I'll give them a wave and a shout out also. But on one of the field trips that we took to the Retzer Nature Center, my daughter Marina was looking for frogs. She's always looking for frogs. She loves catching them and trying to just see what they're up to and see what they're doing at that time. And on this particular field trip, she couldn't find any frogs, and she was pretty frustrated and was kind of like, Mom, how come I can't find any frogs? And I said to her, it's January. I don't think there's any frogs that are out in the wintertime. And she said, well, where do they go? And I didn't know. And I teach about animals, and I didn't know where frogs went in the winter. And so I said, I don't know, maybe under something. And she said, under? In the mud? And the way that she phrased that, I just really liked how it sounded. And so as we continued our hike, we tried to think of all different kinds of animals that live in Wisconsin and what they do in the wintertime. And a lot of them I didn't know. But what I did was when I got home, I got out my writer's notebook. And I know that some of you like to write and like to take notes about things. And I have a writer's notebook where I write down all of my ideas. So I just want to share this with you. This was the page that I had for Under in the Mud. And for a long time, I just had written down the title and jotted down some numbers and ideas and some rhyming words because this is a rhyming book. And then I kind of let it sit. And that's okay, because sometimes when we have ideas, we need to give them time to get better in our heads. And so I let it sit actually for almost 4 years. And then I started writing more, and I really liked this idea of teaching about what animals do in the wintertime. And so I started actually writing more details about it and adding lots and lots of verses to it. And then I had other people read it, and they gave me ideas on how to make my writing better, and they helped me make it a book that I was kind of proud of. And so then this year, what I did was I sent it to a publisher, and the publisher thought it was a good idea and decided to publish it. So it came out last month, and I've been really excited to be able to go into lots of different kinds of classrooms, from anywhere from kids who are not even in school all the way up to high schoolers today, which is pretty cool. And just really neat to be able to share something that that I'm excited about and that I created. I'm gonna just show you one more thing. I know you guys can see the screen there, but I'm gonna give you one secret about the book. If you open it up all the way, it is a full spread like this. And the book actually shows all of the different areas where the animals in the book survive for the winter. So I'm going to hold this up for a little bit, and I want you to just think about what animals might be in this book and what might they do in the winter. And maybe compare that to what you do in the winter time. Think it's the same? Is it different? We'll revisit that at the end and see what you think. So we'll go ahead and get started. My book is called Under in the Mud, written by me and then illustrated by Mara C. Williams. She's also a first-time book illustrator. She lives out in the state of Oregon. For Sierra and Marina, my mud monsters. Under in the mud, where the stream used to run, sleeps a frozen spring peeper, all alone, just the one. Spring, dreams the peeper. Ah, spring, dreams the one, frozen in the mud where the stream used to run. In a crack in the rock, small enough to slip through, slides a large garter snake and her snake partners too. Coil, hisses the snake, we coil, hiss the two. So they coil all together in the rocks they slip through. Nestled in leaves in a sturdy oak tree sits a fuzzy gray squirrel and her baby squirrels 3. Munch, chirrs the squirrel. We munch, chirr the 3. So they munch on acorns in their nest in the tree. Deep beneath the ice in a pond far from shore floats a silent painted turtle and his turtle friends 4. Breathe, thinks the turtle. We breathe, think the 4. So they breathe still and slow in their pond far from shore. Clustered together in a man-made hive hides a large queen bee and her worker bees 5. Shiver, hums the queen. We shiver, hum the 5. So they shiver round their queen in their man-made hive. Swimming under ice to a den made of sticks live a mom and pop beaver and their beaver kits 6. Gnaw, bark the parents, we gnaw, bark the 6. So they gnaw and they nibble from their den made of sticks. Up above the clouds where the sun feels like heaven flies a Canada goose and his goose family 7. Hurry, honks the goose, we hurry, honk the 7. So they hurry to the south where the sun feels like heaven. Over in the woods, in a nest built too late, rests a cold field mouse and her mouse babies 8. Huddle, cries the mouse, we huddle, cry the 8. So they huddle to stay warm in their nest built too late. In a cave underground where the light would never shine, hangs a drowsy brown bat and his bat buddies 9. Snuggle, squeaks the bat, we snuggle, squeak the 9. So they snuggle down to sleep where the light would never shine. Relaxing by the fire in our cozy family den are my family and me and my best friends 10. Huga, I smile, Huga, smile the 10. So we relax in contentment in our cozy family den. And Ashley, before you go to the very last page in the book, I just want to point out the illustrator for my book did a really cool thing on this page because I realized that in my family, if you include my 2 parents, they have 8 grandchildren. And so 8 plus 2 is 10, which is the last number in the book. And so in this picture is actually my mom and dad, and then all of the grandkids. And my mom and dad are actually on this call. So if you scroll down and see Jim Raymond somewhere on there, he's on there with 2 of my nieces. Evelyn and Layla are there today. And so they're in this picture, which is a really cool thing that the illustrator did for our family.
As well as a lot of the animals that are in the story.
Yeah, that's true. All of the animals except for one that's hiding are in this page. So it's kind of a neat little hide and seek on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So the last page of the book has a lot of different facts about all of the animals that were included on the pages. And I'm not going to read all of these out loud to you guys just because it gets pretty long to sit and read all of those, especially when I have some other things to show you guys. But this is something that I do think is important, is when you go outside and you wonder about things, you might have lots of questions, and the way that you can find out about those is to ask somebody or to go and try and find the answers yourselves. And that was a lot of what I had to do for my book as well, is I had to learn what all of those animals did in the wintertime. And I'm going to share a couple of the animals with you today because we have them here at our center, and maybe share a couple of facts about what they do in the wintertime as well. So the first animal I want to share with you is actually a turtle. So I'm just gonna, I've got him here sitting next to me. All right, I'm just gonna move the towel over my computer because he is a wet turtle. This is Tiny. Tiny is a painted turtle. He is an aquatic turtle that lives here in Wisconsin. Aquatic means he spends a lot of his time in the water. So if you go outdoors, mostly in the spring, summer, and fall, and you are by a lake or a river or a pond, you might see painted turtles like Tiny resting on logs or on the side of the, or on the edges of the pond as well. Ways that you can identify painted turtles is they have a lot of bright colors on the sides of their shell, and their head has yellow stripes all along it, even through their eyes. And the other kind of cool thing about them is if you look at their back shell here, it really doesn't have a lot of color on it, and that's on purpose. We want to make sure, or they want to make sure that they're hidden when they're in the water, so that any predators that are coming along might just think that they're a rock or something underneath. Now, one thing that I learned this year, and this is brand new learning for me, was there's a real easy way to tell if you have a boy or a girl painted turtle. And the way you do that is you look at the claws on their feet. So I'll try and turn Tiny here. If your turtle has long claws on the front, like Tiny does, that means it's a boy painted turtle. If your turtle has long claws on its back feet, that means it's a girl painted turtle. Tiny has long claws on the front, so I know he's a boy. The girls have them longer on their back feet because when they go to lay their eggs in spring and summer, they use their back feet to dig their nests, and so that's where they need to have longer claws. So Tiny is one of the animals in my book, and one of the things that I learned about what painted turtles do in the winter is they have a really unique way of surviving. So when I first was looking into it, I thought, well, turtles must be one of those animals that goes under in the mud. They must just dig down and survive down there somehow. But what I learned was they are actually a little bit active in the winter. They go down to the bottom of rivers and ponds and lakes, and they slow down a lot. So they're not super active, but they will still move. And I've heard that you can actually look down through the ice in a pond, and sometimes you can see turtles moving around down at the bottom if the ice is really clear. I've never seen that, but I'd love to see it someday. But it got me thinking, well, I know that turtles have to breathe air. They can't breathe water like a fish. And I know they come to the surface to breathe with their noses and their mouths. So if they do that, how do they survive under the ice in the wintertime? And I didn't know. So I had to look it up. And what I found was kind of silly. Are you guys ready for a silly fact? What I found was they don't go to the surface to breathe air in the wintertime. They stay down at the bottom, and they've got a special adaptation in their body that allows them to breathe through the water. They kind of turn into the same kinds of things that fish do, but they don't take that water into their body through their noses and mouths. Are you ready? They breathe through their butts. And if you watch Frozen 2, Olaf also said that. But what happens is they take water in through their butt, and then inside their body, they've got a special membrane that takes the oxygen out of the water and allows them to survive. It brings that oxygen right into their bloodstream. And so it's pretty crazy. These turtles have some really cool adaptations that I didn't even know about. And this isn't true for all turtles. This is true for painted turtles. But just knowing all those different things is pretty cool to learn about. So I'm going to put Tiny back. I'll have you guys wave to Tiny, and I'm going to share one more animal with you guys. I'll be right back. I have to go get him. So this is Flame. Flame is a red rat snake, also known as a corn snake. And he lives here at our nature center in Waukesha, but he doesn't live in the wild in Wisconsin. He is more native to southern or southeastern United States. And so he normally wouldn't survive out in the winter here in Wisconsin. I didn't have any garter snakes like I do in the book, but many snakes often do the same things when they're trying to stay warm. If you notice, he's moving all over the place. Today is his feeding day, so I think he's probably looking for some food to eat. But what snakes do in the winter is they gather together in hibernation dens, and they kind of all gather up in a big ball and stay warm that way. They do slow their bodies down a lot, so they don't have to use a lot of energy. If you are interested in seeing what they do in the winter, if you Google narcissus snake dens, which are in Canada. There's some really cool videos of garter snakes in the winter on that video. So snakes are pretty neat because they gather all together in a big group in the wintertime rather than staying alone, which is what a lot of other animals do as well. And just, I'm going to put him back as he's pretty wiggly. But if you guys do have any questions about any animals in the book or animals that I've shared, make sure you put them in the chat and we'll definitely have time at the end to answer them. And I think I have time for one more animal. So I'm going to go put Flame away and then I will grab one more animal for you guys.
I'm reading the last page of her book, and it says that humans stay active during the winter, but some actually migrate to warmer areas. Fireplaces and friends and family and coziness are all the things that you guys mentioned at the beginning. So I think that, you know, that's a way we all kind of survive our winter.
Absolutely. So the last animal I have to share with you isn't in the book either, but is similar to one of them. This is one of our tiger salamanders. I look at them, this one is Arrow. And tiger salamanders do live here in Wisconsin. They are not so much like the frogs in the book, even though they are a type of amphibian, just like the frogs. The spring peeper is the frog that I had in the book, and they kind of freeze when they are spending the winter. Their body, the cells in their body fill with glucose, and so that helps their cells from dying. But salamanders don't have that adaptation. What they do is they dig way down in the ground, or they'll use the burrows of other animals to get below the frost line here in Wisconsin. And so they have to survive by going deep, deep, deep down so that they don't freeze in the wintertime. But they do survive by slowing their body way down as well, so they don't have to use a lot of energy. I see a question there, is this a boy or girl? I actually don't know if there is a way to tell if salamanders are boys or girls. That's something that I would have to look up or ask an expert about, but that's a great question. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Arrow away. And just one last thing before we move into the question. If you guys remember from the beginning, I came up with the idea from this book by just being outdoors, by going on a hike and noticing some things that were going on around us. And I would encourage you guys to do that. No matter the time of year, go outside and just notice what's going on above you, around you, underneath you, and ask questions and wonder about things. And you never know where that's going to take you. And so it's a neat thing to just be able to do wherever you are, whenever you think of it.
Sure. So at Field Adventures, we like to think of the questioning strategies of what did you notice, whether it's in the book or maybe out on a hike. What do you wonder about? And that's just the natural curiosity. And what does it remind you of? So comparing things, even man-made things, to natural things or things you've done in the past to what you saw today. So if you have a question, you can either raise your hand and we'll try to spotlight your video, and you can unmute yourself and ask it face to face with Laureanna, or you're welcome to type it in the chat. If you could include your child's name, grade, and if you haven't already shared where you're from, you could do that. So we have a couple questions, one from Jay in Wisconsin. Wouldn't the freezing kill the salamander?
So absolutely, if a salamander was left out in the regular wintertime, it would not survive. It's got really thin skin and just not a lot of protection. But what it does is it digs down deep enough that the temperature of the earth is actually warmer when you get down below a certain level. I think if I think about when I visited caves and things like that, I want to say it's 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And so when animals or people dig down deep enough, it's warm enough to survive the winter.
Another question in the chat is, do snakes hibernate?
So snakes kind of hibernate is my understanding. They don't fully hibernate. They're not completely asleep or completely inactive, but they gather together in big hibernacula is the word, and they slow way down. And that I'm not sure if there's a special name for how reptiles hibernate. I'm not sure if it's brumation or not, but it is kind of a resting time, which is a lot of what animals do in the winter.
And Charlie is asking, what do those two animals eat? I think he might have been referring to the ones that you were showing.
Sure. So our painted turtle here eats turtle pellets because it doesn't live in the wild. If he were to live in the wild, he does eat, actually we do feed him worms once in a while as well, but he will eat worms, frogs, other small like fish, and any kind of small food that he can get. Our snakes here at the center all eat defrosted mice. And out in the wild, they also eat mice and rats. They are the ones we have here are red rat snakes, and so they tend to eat a lot of rodents. Our salamanders, they're kind of interesting. They don't have really big or sharp teeth, so they have to eat pretty soft food. Salamanders tend to eat grubs and worms and squishy foods like that.
Good questions. Jackson wants to know what owls do in the winter.
What owls do in the winter. So I think, and I may have to do some investigating as to different kinds of owls and what they do, but I think owls are pretty active during the winter. And usually when we talk about animals, in the wintertime, we think of three different things. Sometimes some animals hibernate, some animals are active, and some migrate. So we can think of it as HAM. And I'm pretty sure that owls fall under the category of staying active, where they're still hunting food. They're still active either during the daytime or at night, or sometimes dawn and dusk time. There's a great book by Jane Yolen called Owl Moon. If you're interested in checking that out, that's a really good one for just thinking about what you could do to try and find owls in the winter.
The second graders, Miss Nilsson's class, wants to know how you tell if a snake is a boy or a girl.
So that one's kind of a tricky question, because if we think about snakes, they don't have any claws that we can look at. They don't have ears that we can look at, which are sometimes ways that we can tell. With snakes, you do have to usually take them to a veterinarian, and the veterinarian has to do an exam, and they check and see if it's a boy or a girl. And that's at least how we know the snakes at our center are boys and girls. In the wild, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable checking to see if the snakes are boys or girls.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. So I see a young boy with a yellow shirt and blue headphones.
Do you have any birds that you could possibly show us?
You know, I don't have any live birds here in the center. You have to have a lot of special permissions in order to keep birds in a nature center, but I can tip my screen up, and I'm not sure, can you see the bird that's above me there? So in our center, we do have a lot of birds that were donated to us as taxidermied animals, and we do use them for teaching. So this bird in particular is a Canada goose, and I often refer to this bird when I want to teach about how animals that live in the water often have webbed feet. And so, yeah, I'm sorry that I can't show you any live birds, but we do have them here. We've got turkey, I think, in the other room. We've got some grouse. We've got a lot of different kinds of animals that used to be alive but are now really dead animals.
And maybe one more question from the chat. This might stump you.
Okay.
Lynn from Miss Brower's class would like to know if fish sleep with their eyes open. And if so.
Well, what I do know is that fish don't have eyelids. So they definitely have their eyes open. And my guess is that they rest. I don't know, if it's classified as sleep or just resting time. We have a couple of fish at my house, and we have some fish here behind me. And I know there are times where they aren't moving very much. And my guess is that's probably their resting time.
Well, these are amazing questions. You guys are definitely observing the world around you and using those ideas of what do you notice? What do you wonder? What does it remind you of? We're going to move forward with our program because there's a couple more cool things I wanted to show you. But if you continue to have questions, please do some research on all of these wonderful Wisconsin animals. And if you can't find the answer, you can email myself, Ashley at FIELD Edventures, or we can pass those questions on to Laureanna and we can hopefully get you the answers to those questions. What I want you guys to do now is I want to challenge you. So sometime today, or maybe this week, or for sure this winter, I want you to head outside and take a look at the animals in your neighborhood and ask yourself, what do my animals in my neighborhood do in the winter to survive? Maybe it's the animals you see, but maybe it's the lack of an animal that you saw all summer and now you don't see because it's winter. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma, my coworker, and she's going to show you our website that will allow you to get some of the answers to your questions.
Thanks, Ashley. So if you want, we're thinking about ways that you could maybe learn more about animals or go outside and learn. We made a page all about this story, Under in the Mud, and ways that you can go outside. So we really recommend it. We just put the link in the chat. If you want to learn some more, you can go check it out. You can look at ways. It has ideas for ways to go outside and find evidence of critters that are hibernating or migrating or adapting to the cold weather. And maybe you could go outside and pretend to be one of the critters from the story and think about how you would act if you were a mouse or if you were a snake. So we have a lot of really good things that you can check out there on that page, and then also a bunch of other related pages. This is a website, Eeek Environmental Education for Kids, has a lot of great pages that you can use to learn more. So I'm just going to drop some in the chat. We have a bunch of pages on winter animals that were in the book. So if there were animals in the book that you thought, ooh, I really want to learn more about the spring peeper, or I really want to learn more about the Canada goose, you can go on and look at it there. And then we also have other pages that are related to hibernation and ice fishing and other animals that we have in Wisconsin that are not included in the book, like the sandhill crane that migrates. So really great opportunities to get outside, to learn more about the animals in the book and other Wisconsin animals and places and things to do in the winter.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. And environmental education for kids, Eeek is just for kids. So the kids can go on the website and navigate it all, finding some great resources. Parents can go too, but it's designed to be used by kids. The last thing I wanted to share with you, and maybe Laureanna, you could talk about who made the song.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the book is based on an old book and folk song, Over in the Meadow. And I was talking with my husband one day and he said, your friend Emma sings. Do you think she would want to sing your book? And so I asked her and she was very excited. This is different Emma from who is in our meeting today. But what she did was she took all of the pages in the book and she set them to music. And we've got a few of those pages here and it's just a quick short video. If you do want the full video, that comes along with purchasing the book. So we'll play this one and then the link for purchasing the book will be in the chat, I think.
So here's just a teaser.
Sleeps a frozen spring peeper all alone, just the one. Spring dreams the peeper, spring dreams the one. Frozen in the mud where the a crack in the rock small enough to slip through. Slides a large garter snake and her snake partners too. Coil hisses the snake, recoil hiss the two. So they coil all together in the rocks they slip through. Nestled in leaves in a sturdy oak tree sits a fuzzy gray squirrel and her baby squirrels three. Much churs the squirrel, we much chur the three. So they munch on acorns in their nest in the tree. Deep beneath the ice in a pond far from shore floats a silent painted turtle and his turtle friends four. Breathe, thinks the turtle, breathe, think the four. So they breathe still and slow in their pond far from shore.
That is such a great, great song, and I love how it's put to your book. Again, consider purchasing this book for either your home with Christmas coming up. It makes a great gift, maybe your school or community library. And Emma put the links in the chat, and those links will directly support Field Adventures so we can do more of these story adventure programs. So I think we're out of time, but before we end, I would love to thank Laureanna one more time for joining us and sharing with us her new book, Under in the Mud.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for featuring my book. And I just love the chance to get to share all the animals and everything with you too.
And thanks to our sponsors, we are powered by, of course, Field Adventures and the great team here, the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, and the Natural Resources Foundation of Wisconsin. And of course, individual donors like you. We had a Giving Tuesday campaign yesterday, so if you like the work we do, please consider donating. And thanks to those, I noticed a few of you joining us today gave a donation as you registered through Eventbrite. So that was wonderful. Thank you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to stay on and ask. If not, I hope you have a great rest of your day and have fun adventuring. Bye, everyone.